1 in 4 people have ended a relationship from not being financially compatible.
I hate to say it, but the majority of people messaging us about this mental load and having to nag partners was women.
And I was like, are you f***ing serious? Like, you make more than double the amount of money that I was making, but I pay for everything.
I think when your partner is shit with money, it almost is a reflection like of how they value you and the relationship.
Well, look who decided to show up to work today.
Hi.
Good to have you back, D. Salmon.
Hi, yes, I'm Dee. If anyone forgot.
Why does it sound like an AA meeting?
I know, I'm like,
hi, I'm Dee.
Dee Salmon. Thank you so much for having me back. It's been a couple of weeks. Yeah, look, maybe we should do a bit of an intro.
Yeah, let's do a reset.
All right. Gemini, loves cats, sits here, talks about sex and dating with you.
Aquarius, Pip Rasmussen, short for Philippa, which apparently means lover of horses.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I've been going on a few dates and people always ask what Philippa means. And I was like, it's actually Greek for lover of horses. And you know what? I'll just tell you right now, I'm okay about horses. I like them.
I was like, yeah, you're not a horsey girl.
Not a horse girl.
Wow, we actually have never spoken about this. Because did you know that, because my Daria.
Yeah.
Hello, nice to meet you. That means ocean.
Does it?
Yeah. This is why I tried so hard in high school to make beach salmon my nickname.
I love this.
So I was like, Daria literally means ocean.
I can't believe I'm only just learning this about you as well. Anyway, so Dee and I, we do this show called The Hookup. That's what you clicked onto right now. We unpack your really cooked dating stories. We debate like pretty polarizing topics about sex and relationships. And we're learning about each other here.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Wow. I know. Groundbreaking.
I know.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this episode, Pip, because I feel like so many people will get really riled up about money.
People do. I get defensive about money. Well, I try not to, but it's a hard topic for me to talk about sometimes. I find it difficult, let alone with friends and or a partner, can be tough.
And we are all obviously because he lives. Are we still saying that? Or we moved on?
No, we've moved on.
Okay.
So what we're saying.
Cost of living crisis.
No, we're actually saying recession indicator. So
that's right.
On everything, like you probably noticed on like every TikTok, every like Instagram post, someone's like, that's a recession indicator because we're all suffering right now. No one can date. No one can afford it. It's rough.
It's rough out here. And we thought we would do a whole episode hearing how you're going with dating and money. Is this something that like you're purposely not being able to do because you can't afford it? How do you feel about money and relationships? Is this something that you're looking for in a partner? Like, do you want a partner who has a stable income? What about a partner who's really shit with money and the way that they spend it?
Or if somebody's kind of too good at money and then they're really frugal and it takes like the fun out of the dating and the relationship.
Well, research actually shows, which is what we're going to unpack in this app, that 1 in 4 people have ended a relationship from not being financially compatible. Like, that's huge.
1 in 4.
1 in 4 relationships have ended because of money.
Yeah, that tracks. Well, I think let's get into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we said before, recession indicators, everyone's talking about it. And like I said, it's hard out here. People are dating in a recession. Times are tough. And we wanted to know from you at Triple J The Hookup, our Instagram. If you're not already following, go do that. We wanted to know, how has your dating life changed because of the rising cost of living? So 33% of you said, not really, it hasn't changed that much. 41% of you said somewhat. 18% of you said, yes, I'm really frugal when it comes to dating. And 18% of you said, I can't even afford to date. So people are not even getting out there, which is really depressing.
That's huge.
Yeah. But 41% being the big one, being like, okay, it's definitely changed my vibe. And I think we've talked about this before on the show. You know, people are doing way more free dates, like walks, coffees. Well, that's not free, but you know, $4, $8 if you're getting a matcha.
I was like, what coffee are you having? My matcha is $10.
$8 to $10 for a soy matcha, please. And if it's strawberry,
even then,
15. The recession indicator is that we're running out of matcha as well, by the way. I won't go into it.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Look, obviously, we love getting stats from you as well, but we did our research online. And the latest research from this year, which is from the BMO Real Financial Progress Index, no idea what that means.
Whoa.
We'll add everything in our show notes research-wise, by the way. They said costs are forcing uncoupled Americans to adjust and even pull back on their dating plans. More than 4 in 10 single Americans agree that they have had to adjust a date for financial reasons.
So 44%.
Yep. And more than 1/4 had to cancel a date due to financial pressures.
Yeah. So this is definitely something that we saw reflected in our DMs. So Ryan DM'd us and said, I don't date because I have credit card debt. I'm 35 and poor. It's 100% a confidence killer for me, which makes me feel really bad. And like, I completely understand, like, going into dating, you might feel like you're getting judged.
Or just
That's
the
hard.
anxiety, like the anxiety. I think everyone, well, maybe not everyone can relate, but that anxiety of sitting at a dinner and then watch and not being able to, like, feeling too embarrassed to say, like, no, well, can we not order that? Like,
Yeah.
and just seeing making the calculation in your head, knowing that bill is racking up.
Yes.
And then that anxiety of sitting there, you can't even enjoy the day because you're just like,
Yep.
fuck, that's going to be like $200 each.
Yeah, I've definitely been in that scenario. Sally also DM'd us and said, I want to get back into dating post-breakup, but I currently have no disposable cash and it's a struggle.
I know this happened last year, but we can't not mention the Yochi TikTok guy.
Well, it did change the way people were talking about dating at the time. So if you don't know, we'll put a little clip up of him in this car. But essentially he was post-date at a famous frozen yogurt chain.
Sorry for saying the brand.
And essentially, famously, it's known for being quite expensive because you add all the toppings and stuff like that. Anyway, he goes on this date and he's complaining in the car about how this girl was putting way too many toppings. It was costing him so much money and he was not happy with how that date went because he didn't want to pay for it. And then everyone was flaming him, being like, if you can't afford a Yochi, you can't afford to date and you just shouldn't be out there.
It was also the fact that he was shaming her for eating too much. It was like a combo of him going, oh, she's gone for the big cup. And then said like, oh, she's really filling it up. And then shamed her for eating it.
But yeah, obviously that's kind of like a recession indicator. People like can't even afford to have a frozen yogurt date, which is pretty low key compared to like rounds of drinks, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it like $15 max, I reckon it would cost.
Yeah.
Which, you know, can be hard for someone.
100%.
But it's like, should you even be asking people out on those kind of dates if you genuinely can't afford $15?
I think it's unfair to say to somebody like you shouldn't be dating if you can't afford it.
No, it's not that you shouldn't be dating, but like you shouldn't be instigating those dates if you can't afford them. There's so many like TikToks where you can look up like free dates or cheap dates. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of unfair to ask someone out. I'm assuming he asked her to Yochi. And then complain or like shame her for filling up her cup. He didn't know that she didn't know that he was going to pay for it. She could have just been like, oh, I'll pay for my own, you know?
Yeah, 100. Well, we got heaps of voice memos and DMs across this whole topic. And one that I really want to play out is from Ben talking about being on the DSP and how that is really hard.
Dating on the disability support pension is hard. The biggest hurdle I find would be the financial barrier, as to attend any in real life events, such as a speed dating event or a singles event. I also can't help but feel judged, and I feel like I have to hide the fact that I'm a disabled and I'm on the disability support pension.
And we had heaps of DMs actually of people saying similar thing, like being on the DSP, having to hide it, feeling judged. Like a lot of people related to Ben on that.
It's a hard thing to navigate, right? Because like people obviously really value honesty in dating and relationships, but like, is that going to impact how people perceive you if you are just like, hey, just to let you know, like I can't afford this date, but like, would you want to go for a walk? Like if someone said to you, hey, like I'd love to go out with you, but and they're like, oh yeah, let's grab a drink. And then you're like, yeah, but I'm probably going to have to only get a soda water.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford a drink.
It is like what Ryan said before, like the kind of confidence kill. It can be kind of a vibe kill, but the confidence to have to say that in a message, it would be really tough. Maybe it's like yes and. It's like a yes and situation.
It's like, or just try and not hide it, but just try and like offer up other options.
Exactly.
Like there's this really amazing park I wanted to go to, or
Yeah.
I really wanted to go do this thing. Like just like suggest something else if they're trying to like push for a dinner or whatever. And some people will be dating because they want to be wined and dined.
Yeah.
Then they'll just find people who can wine and dine them. Do you know what I mean? Like
you gotta read the room with that.
you're not going to meet your match.
Totally. Well, we asked you as well, like how important is money to you in a dating and a relationship sense? This is kind of like the big question of this episode. And we did a poll, obviously. We said, how important is it to date someone who has the same money values as you? Before we get into the results, money values, I think to me is kind of like how you spend and save as somebody like who has an income.
I think it would be like, what do you value to spend your money on?
What are you
like,
prioritizing?
What are you prioritizing?
Yeah.
Like, are you someone who values putting away savings to go towards your life future goals?
Or are you like a frivolous spender where you're
Yeah.
like, I kind of just impulse buy things and like that's my fun thing? Or are you like, I'm saving for a house or I'm saving for a big holiday, like whatever it is. And I think also like money values to me might be like financial literacy, whether or not you're like, it's really important to me to know how to save, budget, how to talk about money, interests,
Yeah.
home loans, shit
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So I think that's a money value.
Yeah. Well, very interestingly,
Mm-hmm.
5% said not important, 46% said somewhat important, and 49%, so nearly pretty much half of you said it's very important that you date someone who has the same money values as you.
Yeah.
Which, is huge.
It completely makes sense. And we saw that reflected in the DMs. Tessa saying, I defs wouldn't get into a relationship with someone who wasn't financially secure. We also got this voice memo from James.
Money has always played a big role in my life. Like, I've seen a bunch of people break up from the strain of finances, especially when one partner isn't pulling their weight or sabotages it when the couple are trying to save. It's all fun and games until you don't know where your next meal is coming from because you're flat broke.
I mean, that's it. Like, poverty is not fun.
Yeah.
So it's a really big deal for people to be financially secure, especially with a partner.
Chris said it's a turn-off if the other person isn't in a good place financially, can't take on that extra burden.
Mel said finances are a strain on my current relationship. I recently finished my degree and make the same as my partner. I'm able to put savings away, yet he has 5 cents at the end of the pay cycle.
That to me is a clash of money values, right? It's
Totally.
like one person values saving, being smart with their money, and the other person is like, I don't care what happens.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we actually got this really good voice memo from Poppy who was like, oh my God, the relief I feel dating someone now who I am financially compatible with.
It's so refreshing dating someone who has the same value on money as myself. I feel like money really is important in relationships. You have shared expenses and like no matter what in a relationship, money is going to come up. We've set up a Beam account for us for just those shared expenses, which works out really well, just tracking what we do. And then in past relationships, just suggesting things like that or, even asking for maybe money back of a really expensive payment was just like never met with like, oh yeah, shit, I'm really sorry. I absolutely owe you this. It was always met with like, are you serious? Like, why does that even matter? And, I think came up, definitely like had different upbringings when it came to money and that made an impact on things. But I really noticed in this relationship, just always like agreeing and having the same outlook of how we should do things with money is just like, oh man, didn't realize how frustrating that was in the past. This is so, so, so nice.
Interesting that Poppy mentioned the upbringing thing because I think that is like a huge part of this conversation around like sometimes I'll take the way that people are with money really personally about them. Like I'll be like, what do you mean you like don't have savings? Or like, what do you mean you're just like happily living in debt? Like that to me gives me so much anxiety. Or like, what do you mean you just spent like $500 on a dinner casually during the week? But then you have to realize like that's just what they've learned from their parents or their upbringing. And like we all have such different ideas and values when it comes to money based off of what we've learned from our parents. And that's why some people can be really, really frugal and you're like, why are they saving like every single coin?
Yes.
I have friends that literally have like piles and piles of coins. And I'm like, this is so strange to me.
Really?
Yeah. But I'm like
coin jars.
Yeah. And then you find out that their parents do the same thing. And it's just this cycle, I think. And you forget that like, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, what the fuck why are they so weird?
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's just how they've been brought up.
And it can be like a neurotic thing with people for sure. This just reminded me actually, there's a guy on TikTok who's like famous for being frugal and a frugal spender. And his comment sections are so divided. Some people are really like, yep, love what you're doing here. This is so smart. And then some people are like, this is way too far. Like you're neurotic about it and you're sucking the life and the fun out of your life.
Yeah.
And if you have a partner who's like that as well, it can kind of suck the fun out of the relationship. And Rube's got in touch and she sent us a voice memo about this.
When I was with my ex, we had like very different ideas about money. He was only a couple of years older than me, but he was really frugal with all of his money. it always felt like a point of contention that wasn't really spoken about. And he always made me feel like I was too frivolous with money, even though I was pretty good with saving and stuff. So I would never date someone who was that frugal with money again. It was really off-putting and stressful.
Do you know what I find really interesting is when we talk about compatibility in relationships, money is hardly ever mentioned. That's something that I just think, like you said at the start, we find really hard to talk about. But like hearing from all of you and just like looking at the research, this study that came from Lending Tree, which we'll put in our notes, said 98% of people surveyed said that financial compatibility is like super important in a relationship. 67% said it's very important. And 1 in 4 people ended a relationship due to financial incompatibility. But like we never talk about that. Like you just go like, oh, I want them to be like
Sexually compatible.
yeah, or like, they're like my soulmate, or like we just like the same stuff, like we're just on the same page. And I just feel like when people talk about the things that they love about their partner, it's never like, oh, they care about money in the same way that I care about money.
They budget like me.
They budget like me, and
They
it's
get
so
me.
romantic and cute.
Yeah, because it kind of isn't like romantic and cute to talk about, because it can bring up some really prickly topics about how you're saving, how you were brought up, like, what are your goals? These are hard conversations to have. And we actually did our own research, of course. We did a poll as well. Have you ever broken up over money-related issues? 23% of you said yes. 77% of you said no, you haven't broken up over
So
it.
nearly 1 in 4 of you have broken up over money-related issues.
And we're not talking about enough.
Like that's a huge amount of breakups happening. Like you think like, I don't know, I just think about breakups, I think like cheating. I think about like falling out of love.
Yeah.
Nearly 1 in 4 is based off of money.
Maybe as well, like people don't talk about it as well because it's like, it's kind of almost taboo. Like if you were to break up with somebody because they were like really in debt, you might not want to like tell your friends that and be like, they actually have like $55,000 of like credit card debt and I can't get involved in that. Like it's so private. Maybe that's why it's like not talked as well. Like, I don't know.
I think as well with because what was really interesting was there was a study that spoke about the fact that the incompatibility with money, the reason you broke up is because you're blaming the other person.
Yeah.
So
it's so
38%
interesting.
in this study said that their partner overspends. 34% said their partner doesn't manage their finances well. And 30% said their partner doesn't save enough. So it's always like, you're the problem. This is why we broke up, because like you're not saving. You don't look after your money well and you overspend.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. And I think like not only is it the incompatibility thing, but I think when your partner is shit with money, it almost is a reflection like of how they value you and the relationship.
Yeah, like it's like, as you said, it's like a reflection potentially on them not caring enough about you, not investing in the future with you. So
yeah, I don't know if this is right, but I've always taken how someone spends their money in the relationship as a reflection of how they feel about me. And I know that that's not true.
ooh,
But
that's
like
kind of dangerous.
yeah. So for example,
Okay.
my ex didn't have it. This is like my first ex, didn't have a job. I paid for absolutely everything, right? I like would pay for his petrol just so he could come to visit me. Like literally everything. I paid for so much stuff. I like bought him heaps of presents. Like I showed I'm like a love language gift giving.
You
I'm
are
like,
a gift giver.
Yeah, I love like spending money on
For
people
sure.
and giving gifts, and like that's how I show my affection. And he would never spend any money on me. I would always pay for everything. And then when he got the odd Centrelink payment, where he did actually get some cash, he would spend it on drugs.
Wow.
It actually hurt. And I took that as a reflection of, you don't value me as a partner and you don't value this relationship because you would rather spend your money on yourself and having a good time.
Yeah. Okay. I completely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. Similar but different. So the compatibility thing, like me with like my ex a long time ago, we were a lot younger. He was a musician. I was working. I always had the money in the relationship, and we were financially not very compatible because I would always want to go out and do nice date nights with him, but he couldn't afford it. And it was like kind of put a little bit of a strain on the relationship every now and then, but we worked through it. But when he did get money, he would always be like, let's go get let's have a nice pizza night out and like have some drinks and like go and do that. And it made me feel really like special and loved, because it was like with what little he had, he would spend it on me.
you.
And it made me feel good.
See?
Yeah. I get that. I really get that.
So that's why I think like when you are in those situations with people where like you are giving so much to the other person and spending a lot of money, and maybe, I don't know, we need to chat to an expert about this. Like maybe it's not a good idea to actually like only see love through spending,
Mm-hmm.
but like how could you not take that as a reflection of the love that person feels towards you or the value that they put into the relationship?
I do think I want to put myself in the shoes of people like who we heard from before though, who were like, I cannot afford to date and I can't like show my love in that way, or I'm on a pension or whatever they're going through. I'm like, not to discredit you at all, like if you're in that scenario, because I'm sure there's like so many ways that you want to show love and show up for somebody. But going back to what you said about funding that lifestyle and him purchasing illegal substances with that money, and you basically enabling, like, no offense, but you kind of did, I guess.
God, yeah.
But you were in love and whatever, and that's what people do, right? That I feel like we need to get into at some point in this and talk about like how you can go into a bit of a dangerous path with that sort of stuff with money, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
I want to talk about like how when your partner earns more than you, so like I kind of referenced before how like in that like past relationship, I was earning more than my partner. They were like a budding musician, blah, blah, blah. Something that I've been thinking about with this topic is like whether or not you can actually have a successful or viable relationship with somebody if you have like a really big wage gap. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about this? Because I've kind of been mulling it over and I'm like still confused as to what I think.
I don't know. I think it's hard.
I think it's really hard. Like going back to the compatibility thing, right?
Yeah.
And like that's such a high value. And you told us like you value someone who is on the same page. So it's like, how do you date someone who has like completely different values? Like I'm not sure if it's possible.
And like at what point does the other partner start acknowledge that there's like that huge gap, the one who earns more and starts like paying for things or like happily paying for things because they just want their partner to be having a good time as well, right? Like we got this voice memo from Darcy about this.
I've been with my girlfriend for about 4 years and she earns a lot more money than I do. She earns about 2 to 3 times more than what I would make. I was able to quit my last job and study while she supported me. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't with her because on Centrelink alone, that was not enough to support myself. We never really have to worry about finances, which takes a lot of stress out of my life. I do feel guilty at times. However, like we both work full time and she's always willing to cover what I can't afford without that expectation of me having to pay it back. So we're able to live comfortably and still save for a house. Whereas if I was single, I would only be just getting by with the basics.
Okay, obsessed with that. Because that's a success story of where it's like it's working with these people. They must have a really, really good relationship, like really good communication.
Secure and healthy.
Yeah, to be able to be like the girlfriend being like, I've got this. This doesn't need to be an issue and I'll never resent you for it. You know?
I like the thing that I find is like sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, is like I feel really guilty when someone spends lots of money on me because then I feel like I have to match them.
Yes.
But then I generally can't afford. So like you end up, it's almost like lifestyle creep. Like you end up just paying so much more and putting so much more into the relationship because you're just like, I don't know. It's almost like when you're going out for dinner with friends, like I am that person that's like, oh, like, fuck, I've got to pay blah, blah, blah back. Like it'll like weigh on my head. Whereas I know for some other people, they're just like, oh, whatever, it all comes out in the wash. Whereas I'm like, I owe blah, 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 like $50. Like,
yeah.
And I feel like sometimes like not keeping score, but in a relationship, if someone's spending a lot of money, like I feel that pressure, like, oh, I've got to match them, even though like there's just no way that I ever could.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wonder if that, like impacts people long term.
100%. And I think it's something that you kind of hinted at there is like almost like the power imbalance of that.
Totally.
And that's really hard to manage that dynamic sometimes. And we got a voice memo from Charlotte talking about this.
I dated this guy when I was like 20 maybe and at uni, and he was so flashy with his money. It was ridiculous. So like would buy really fancy theatre tickets and then we'd like go out for dinner before, then he'd pick this like super fancy restaurant, be like, oh yeah, we'll get like this bottle of wine, and like I always have to split it. But there's a little bit of a thought that like had he said yes, let's do it, like there's no way I could have afforded that, and it just ended up in this weird like almost like a power imbalance. And I felt like almost as if he's buying the relationship. It felt super uneven and almost like I owed him something, which was like super frustrating, but yeah, really weird.
She's like you.
That's how I feel.
The guilt complex. I relate to that too.
And maybe it's just internalized though. Like the other person might just be like genuinely not caring at all.
And they might have no idea about your financial situation.
But like Charlotte and I are both walking around going like,
oh fuck. They're
like keeping a tab.
Let's get a round of voices, and you're like, God damn it.
So I owe thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like this whole power imbalance is like brought up such a good point and something that we could absolutely talk a long time about, but we'll try not to. Obviously, we got to talk about like the political, gender, social aspect of money in relationships. And so many of you came through in the DMs. Blair saying, as a female, many of the men I've dated in the past have been really intimidated by my high income. We've done episodes about that, you know, talking about that kind of thing. Kate saying, at the beginning, my ex earned really good money as a nurse while I was studying. Then I graduated and earned significantly more than him. The insecurity came along and he started guilting me for earning more money, even though I took up most of the financial burden. I had people shaming us, including his family, which took its toll.
I was literally having a conversation with a friend the other day, and they were saying that their relationship split up because their partner was like, one of the factors was that he was so intimidated by her success.
Really? She was like on 6-7 figures and he was like, can't handle.
Yeah. And I've heard from multiple friends who have broken up with their partners who are like successful, like incredibly successful, like the one who's like earning way more, that like their male partner just cannot handle being in the shadow, quote unquote.
And it's like this whole patriarchal, like trickle down effect of like traditional gender masculine
How many
roles.
women are in the shadow of men?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of traditional roles that are still like, yeah, men think that they're taking up the space and now women are obviously moving up. What do you think of this DM from Shay? I want to run it by. So it's like, got dinner with my then boyfriend. Elderly man noted that he didn't even try and reach for his card. The boyfriend hit him with the times have changed and I paid. The whole thing icked me out.
I hate that.
I know. We got this really cool voice memo from Jeremy talking about their experience as a trans man, which I think you'll find really interesting.
I transitioned at 26, so I had those years previously dating as a woman in a female relationship, never felt any societal pressure to share the bill, pay for things, blah, blah, blah. As a man in a straight relationship by society seen as a cis man, if I went to, say, a date with my ex and she would pay for a drink for me at the pub, I'd get looks from other guys like, ugh, why is she dating you? Like the confused looks. And I would always feel like, okay, like there's a huge pressure, and I felt it even in certain woke cultures, as you would say. You know, it seemed to be expected that the man will pay for, you know, things on the date. I have been told that I cannot date because I don't have a job at the moment, so I'm too broke to date. So it's all based around, in my opinion, and from my experiences as a man dating women, that you definitely have to have money.
That's so interesting.
Isn't it?
Oh my God, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Having both perspectives.
I know. And lots of guys in the DMs were agreeing like there's that pressure, the financial pressure to be like the provider.
Oh, there's
you know what
huge
I mean?
for men.
Again, a traditional masculine role that like guys are getting told in subtle and not so subtle ways online to be like the man, the provider, the breadwinner.
There is something kind of slay though as a woman. Like I used to pay for the first date all the time. Like I just, so let's talk about splitting the cost, because I would always just jump in at the start just because like I didn't want the awkward dance and I just wanted to, it was like a bit of a like, yeah, babe, of course I've got this.
So it was like a flex thing for you?
It was a bit of a flex thing, but then it got to the point where I was spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these shitty guys that I would never see again. And I was like, what am I doing? Why am I like, I don't know. It's like what, to boost my ego, to feel powerful in the moment, to be like, yeah, I did that. For who?
Yeah.
Someone that I'll never see again?
So later in life, then you were literally like, you don't even reach for the purse. You're just like.
Well, no, I'll split or
you offer at least.
I do the dance, but I'm not racing to pay like I used to.
Yeah.
And I also now have kind of landed with whoever asked the person out should pay.
Yes.
That's how I feel about dating. The first date's the cost. What do you think?
Okay, I'm similar to you in that I used to sort of do that as a flex thing as well. Something felt really powerful to be like, no, I got this. Don't worry. I was like, Mommy's got it. Mommy, put it on Mommy's plastic. Like, I don't know. It was kind of like a power move thing. And then there's something there to unpack about how it's like I'm just reaching into my divine masculine there, being like, yeah, you're my bitch. Like, I'm paying for the meal. But then we don't have time to unpack that. But like, you know what I mean? But then I kind of realized I was like, yeah, like it shouldn't really, like I don't have to feel like this. I shouldn't really have to do it. And now I've kind of eased off a little bit off that. But in terms of like who should pay for the date, like fuck, we could talk about this till the cows come home. Like everyone's got an opinion. I'm kind of like while you're on the date, you kind of do rounds. You go one, then the other, one, then the other. That's kind of where I'm standing on it now. But yeah, it's interesting. We asked you about like how you splitting the costs with your dating and your like long-term relationships. Rach said my ex insisted on keeping separate finances and paying evenly, even though he earned twice as much as me.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting thing.
This is like a really big thing, and it came up a lot in the DMs, and we got a voice memo from Amy talking about this.
We would go out for breakfast, we would go out for lunch, we would go out for dinner like 3 times a week, and I would pretty much always pay, especially like in early dating, like all of our like first dates, like I would pay. I don't know why it eventuated that way, but like when it got to paying, he just kind of like stood there and I was like, okay, I'll pay. At some point, eventually, I changed jobs and I got a really, really big pay increase. And I said, oh, you know, like I've been on 51K and now I'm going to 88K. Like that is insane. And then I kind of asked him, like, how much do you get? And he's on like 110, 120. And I was like, are you fucking serious? Like you make more than double the amount of money that I was making, but I pay for everything. I was so livid and I just felt like I'd been taken such advantage of. So we started splitting more equally, but like, yeah, in early dating, like he was completely oblivious to the fact that he had so much more money.
How do you get to that place though where you were paying for everything and not having a conversation about that? But how are you not going in that moment like, oh, I got
Stand
the
up
last,
for yourself.
or just going like, oh, I got the last dinner. Like you can get this one.
Yeah.
People are so scared to talk about money that you are genuinely just like paying for someone's lifestyle when they're on like double the amount that you're on.
But did you see a little bit of yourself in Amy maybe? Like the first?
Yeah, first date, but not in a relationship.
No,
God, no.
No, I know. It is, crazy to hear that. And that was a really big topic in the DM. So we were sort of discussing it with people like, you know, if your partner earns significantly more than you, they should pay a little bit more, right? Like
100%.
I mean, in Amy's case, like double. That is bonkers, bananas, cuckoo bananas. Tim DM'd us and said, I pay a little bit more towards rent than my ex. I paid a little bit more towards rent than my ex because I earned more, made it more equitable.
I have friends who will do a percentage, right? So they'll have a shared account and they'll each put the percentage of their income into that account, and that's the money that they use to finance like dates or dinners or food or bills or whatever.
That's really fair. I
It's
guess.
really fair. Well, this is a huge convo because like we were saying, nearly 1 in 4 relationships end because of money issues. It gets even more complicated, right, when you start merging.
Yeah.
Yvonne said, I'm financially savvy and responsible, but my partner isn't. I've taught him a lot, and one of the first things we did was set up a shared account with auto transfers from each of us. Whenever we do go on dates, it comes from the joint. Best decision we made, and it helps so much with the financial power imbalance.
Greta also saying something similar in a long-term partnership. I think a joint account for bills and expenses is a good idea. I did that in my last really long-term relationship. It was good, but then you don't even realize like the cost of living was so crazy. Like every pay cycle we agreed for like a certain amount to go in, and then we kept having to up it, and I was getting like really pissed off because I was like, we're spending too much money like
on just like
this
dates
is
and stuff.
annoying and like on dates. But then I realized we had like streaming services, we had bills, we had like a bunch of different things coming out of it, and it was like always in a deficit, and it was like kind of almost made some arguments being like, you need to put money into the joint. Like we're like behind on this and stuff like that. So you have to be on top of it. It's a good idea on paper, I think.
I don't know how couples live together and don't merge. Honey sent us a DM and said, I would never merge finances. Did it once traveling together and then found it so hard to untangle. Hated having to factor someone else into my finances. It made me feel powerless.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because some research that we've found as well about this suggests that actually merging finances is a good idea. So the International Association for Relationship Research published a journal. It was called When Couples Fight About Money, What Do They Fight About? But yeah, they were talking about the financial integration of like pooling finances, and they said it's been linked to better relationship quality. But you know what they said? They said some financial conflicts might be about the coordination of partners' contributions to the joint expenses, aka what I was just saying, like about you've got to be on top of it. Like the fights come from the fact that someone's not contributing enough, or that
Or
someone's
thinking about it.
Yeah, you have
someone's doing the mental load of
Yes.
thinking about the accounts, the bills, the fact chasing up money. Like it's not sexy
Yeah.
to chase up money from your partner. That's so like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But so
100.
many people would be doing that.
And going back to what we were talking about, like gender politics and stuff, like I hate to say it, but like the majority of people messaging us about this mental load and having to nag partners was women.
Yeah.
Like women were like taking on this load as like the financial, like fiscally responsible person in the household.
The accountant.
Yeah, the accountant. Aisha saying, I had to constantly remind my ex to transfer me for living expenses. It was such a buzzkill. Kylie saying the mental load from trying to set good habits and the budget is so tiring. I'm more long-term goal orientated where he prefers short-term gratification. I think this actually might impact future goals like buying a house and having kids.
I think as well with the merging of finances, like we have to be careful with that because I think that, and we'll get an expert to weigh in on a separate episode to this one around like financial abuse and coercion, because there's, like we've been talking and alluding to, the power imbalance that happens when one person earns more and they're in control of the finances and you've kind of like merged, but you need to get their permission or whatever it is. It can get really messy.
Exactly. 100% agree. Like financial abuse is something that you need to be like super aware of and careful of, and it can eventuate, or it can be classed as like domestic violence, really, and it's just coercion in that abusive way.
Yeah, Millie sent us a DM about that, saying, after seeing women in my life struggle at the end of long-term relationships, I've always been adamant that I have a rainy day account in case we break up and I get screwed. Ex hated it and said that I didn't have faith in the relationship, but when he dumped me and got the house after an interstate move, having that emergency fund allowed me to put a roof over my head. I think so many women, like the biggest population of people who are homeless are women over 55. And I think so many women have seen their parents or people that they know go through divorces and see that they have no super, they have no retirement fund, they have no finances because maybe they've been in the motherly child, like looking after the kids role and seen that and then gone like, fuck, I don't want that to be me.
Yep.
And so they are adamant about like having separate finances or having that rainy day account. But yeah, we really need to unpack that with an expert.
That is a huge thing. And, you know, I think a lot of people will relate to the thing of like, maybe you were brought up in your house that says this, a man is not a financial plan. Like you can't rely on that person. And as much as they might be like, babe, live your life. Like, you know, I want you to be happy and I can afford everything for us. Like if something happens at the end of the day, like what happened with Millie, like you're fucked. And it can be very subtle, the ways that people control money in the relationships. And we got a really interesting voice memo from Jimmy talking about this.
So my best friend is very good with her money. She lives alone. She works pretty hard. She saves a lot. This guy that she's dating is 23, so 3 years older than she is, and cannot save for peanuts. Wouldn't trust this guy with a jam tin full of 5-cent bits. He's often indebted to her, and she's often lending him money and stuff, but then also gets upset if she spent $500 on a handbag, but he would easily spend $500 on the pokies, or he's like a platinum member at Crown because he gambles so much. It doesn't put as much a strain on their relationship as you'd think, but at the same time, you'd have to be really, really careful, because I'm sure that if going too far, is some sort of abuse. And I think money really does a lot when it comes to the dynamic of the relationship.
Yeah. And
it's controlling, telling her what she can and can't spend her money on.
Having an emotional reaction to how she spends it and then he gambles, like that's not good. And that, as he said, it can lead down a path. And like we had a lot of people who DM'd us and kind of related to stuff like this. Chelsea saying, my ex would say, don't worry about it and pay, and then would later use it against me. So now I split everything with my current partner so I can't be guilt tripped. That, like guilting someone in terms of how they spend their money, like that's a slippery slope.
Following up on like, like if you had a shared account, like why did you spend that money on that? Or like you're not allowed to do that. Or, you know, it can be, like you said, a slippery slope. thinking about everything that we've spoken about today and hearing from all of you when it comes to money, I think the biggest issue, knowing that nearly 1 in 4 people break up because of money related issues, is basically the fact that like we just don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And people really struggle. And this was something that you told us. We put a poll and we said, do you struggle to talk about money with your partners? 41% of you said yes. And that's just a poll about partners. Like I'm assuming that it might be higher if it's not your partner and you're just like in dating.
Yeah.
It's kind of an awkward buzzkill to talk about money.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good spot to end it. I think we'll definitely get someone to talk to about this and get you some really solid, good advice. Thank you so much to everyone who contributed to this. This was such a huge ep and we took it as many places as we could. But
we covered so many things about
we
money.
really did. I can't wait to edit it. It's going to be really fun. This might just be a long ep, but yeah, honestly, like, yeah, thank you so much for being so open about this and like talking to us about it. And if you ever want to send us a DM, you know where to find us at Triple J the Hookup. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.